Of all of the announced Disney Plus series, or the ones that were in the works, I'm low-key pumped for the new solo series from a longtime Marvel villain that's a low-key hero and fan favorite, and that is Loki. I'm going to break down what we can expect of this show from the trailer, but first I want to take a look at the comic origin, the powers, and the history of this legacy Marvel character, because I'm high-key a fan of Loki. I'm Dan Umpton, and this is the Doomcast. Hey, all of these videos are great, I promise you, and I make about one a week, so it's worth subscribing and hitting the bell. Thanks. Created by Stan Lee, his brother Larry Lieber, and longtime collaborator Jack Kirby, Loki as a Marvel character actually predates Thor. He appeared as a god, albeit with a very differing design, in Venus number 6 in 1949. But just like Vision, Human Torch, and Angel, this could be a very different version of that character. But his modern incarnation came into the fore in 1962 in Journey into Mystery. But in most ways, in fact in many minute ways, the Loki of Marvel Comics differs very little from his origins in the Prose Edda. Loki is the god of lies, tricks, and mischief. Loki is adopted by Odin from Laufey the Frost Giant. Loki is a magic user and frequently uses deception as a weapon, and just like in myth, Loki is gender fluid. And now the MCU has confirmed that they also are. So happy Pride Month everybody, and die mad about it, bigots, because who are you gonna be mad at? Woke Vikings from 1400 years ago? Were they tools of the radical, liberal, leftist, anti-Christian gay agenda? Yes they were, because they were pagans that lived in communes that understood that gender is a construct. Anyway, Loki not only became female at different points, but also mothered and fathered multiple other gods and monsters, even became a salmon and a horse once, crazy story. And since gender fluid isn't the same thing as non-binary or trans, and since the gender fluid people that I know in my life use different pronouns at different times, I'm going to use they, them respectfully from here on out. And as a straight cis white dude, this isn't hard. Just be nice to people and let them live how they want to live. Even Loki could do that. Anyway, back to Loki. Loki Laufeyson is a frost giant by birth, a Jotun. And that means that they're usually presented as adept in ice magic, if we're picking schools, but in comics they've used all sorts of magic, from body switching to time travel to mind control. They mind controlled the Hulk in the first Rampage, which resulted in the assembly of the Avengers to begin with. They've taken over Asgard only to flee when it's attacked by a more imposing threat like Surtur or Mangog. And they even caused Ragnarok the same way that they do in myth, by killing Balder with mistletoe. They accidentally gave the Wrecker his Asgardian magical enchantment, and they have died multiple times and always come back in a different form, one way or the other. For example, after an early Ragnarok cycle, Loki returned in Sif's body, and later, and who knows if this has anything to do with future MCU plans or not, but afterwards spent some time in disguise as Wanda, the Scarlet Witch. Later, after adopting another male form, Loki rather valiantly attempted to oppose the Sentry in his Void form at the Siege of Asgard, when Asgard was parked over the city of Broxton, Oklahoma. But it didn't end well for Loki or Loki's intestines. Very sorry, brother. Nobody could say Loki doesn't have guts, because we all saw them, and there were quite a lot of them. Anyway, that wasn't even the end, because Loki returned this time as a kid and played a pivotal, if not treacherous, role in Young Avengers during Kieran Gillen and Jamie McKelvey's seminal run. Loki's former duplicitous self tricked their child form into letting the original Loki take over their body, but at this point a redeemable and good vestige of that reincarnated child form remained within them, and might still. Even Loki could admit that that was a crime that couldn't be forgiven. So once returned to adult form, Loki began working as an agent of Asgard under Freya, the All-Mother, in an attempt to redeem themselves to whatever degree they could. But it became clear that King Loki of the distant future was intent on manipulating the former self to ensure that they came into being. But present-day Loki, keep this straight, assumed the mantle of the god of stories instead of the god of lies, and changed their own future, even as the world started to end prior to Secret Wars. Post-Secret Wars, Loki returned in an ambitious run for president as the only candidate willing to openly lie to the American people in a clear farce of Donald Trump's successful campaign and ultimately disastrous presidency. And the clear reference to that run is also in the trailer. Which brings us to that trailer review. And clearly, the character who's played a lot of different roles in comics is exploring doing just that in the MCU finally. The TVA imagery somehow conjures similarities of the living tribunal, a cosmic being of quintessential judgment and balance. Now, Mobius is putting that resurrected variant Loki in both the same campaign, a DB Cooper-like role, and also what looks like a number of dystopian futures and past variant timelines created by the theft of the Tesseract. Now, there's a number of Easter eggs of things in the background from previous runs on Loki comics, Agent of Asgard, Vote Loki, and all sorts of things, including a video game system that was supposedly developed by the CIA to use some form of mind control. So there's a lot going on here that I don't think we're going to know about until the show actually ends up explaining it further. But that's the freeing power of this show about a god of mischief, is that it can do just that. It can thrive in that space of mischief, because it's the first Disney Plus show in the MCU that doesn't really have any expectations. It doesn't have to do anything. WandaVision had to answer questions about Endgame and about the future of the MCU. Falcon and Winter Soldier had to answer questions about legacy. But really, Loki's a character out of place, out of time, and out of anything. So what we do know from Loki's comic history, for certain, one, is that they can never truly be fully reformed, even as the impulse to amuse themselves is balanced by the need for recognition from their brother and father. And two, Loki's never exactly gone. Male, female, child, raven, new body, old body, Loki is a constant in the Marvel universe since almost the beginning, and you can bet that that's probably going to end up being the case in the cinematic universe as well, as long as Tom Hiddleston is willing to play the perfectly cast role. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you again next week.